Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stumpy! We're back! Hello! It's a Monday. And lots of stuff going on today. I'm wearing a Santa hat, which is really, really annoying because it turns out that it makes a massive echo in my headset. So you guys can't tell, but Jesus Christ, this is absolutely awful.
Great choice.
I know, right? It's the closest we've got to a Christmas episode, I guess, because we won't be here next week. Carlo, what have you been up to?
Still a little bit ill. Still playing way too much WoW, which might be connected to each other. Who knows? But yeah, you know, song-wise, I guess only playing in the Neg ELO.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming towards the end. Should be playing Larks tomorrow in the final. So looking forward to that. It's been a good event. Cool.
What time are you playing Larks? Do you have a time yet, or?
In the evening, UK time. I think could have been like 8:30. Could have been 9:30. I forget. I don't know. I don't look at these things that closely. He said something. It seemed reasonable. I said yes.
And eagle-eyed viewers among you may have been reading the screen already, and if you weren't reading the screen, what on earth are you doing with your life? You will also notice there is a certain man sat in today's top corner, but less about him and more about the banner behind him. That is, yes, a Peppa Pig banner behind him. But it is indeed Teemu, even. God, I butchered that straight away, from Finland joining us today. Again, how are you doing, Teemu?
I'm fine, thank you. And do you want to know the story behind the Beep Beep Peppa the Beck?
What is really called? Want to know the story?
Yeah. My oldest daughter turned 17 last Friday, and she told everybody else in the family to leave the apartment. I had to go to a hotel with my wife, very unfortunate. And she had her friends over, and they had a party, and this is the decoration they chose. It seems I've really badly failed raising up my children, but it's too late now.
Hey, can't complain.
What kids get up to these days, eh?
Hey, the way I see it,
at least they weren't doing any drugs or anything, so not too bad.
That you know of. Maybe Peppa Pig is. Does anyone know?
I know of. Yes.
Anyone know if Peppa Pig is now street for like some weird? Like, is that street definitely. For cocaine now? Definitely. I don't know. Not with the kids.
Probably.
All right then. So we've got a couple of things to talk about today, and the Santa hat is not just because this episode is close to Christmas. It's because my partner suggested I should wear it, but also because today we got gifted, sent, shown an update on War Council, which had lots of things in. First of all, it had all the new Martell stuff we covered last week. So that's Martell Outriders, Starfall Knights, and Dune Vipers. It also had Targ Heroes 3 in there as well, which I think everybody's been waiting for, seeing as they've been out for a while now. So those are on there as well. But also, randomly, 2 extra units. 2 extra units being Crannog Bog Devils, or Crannog Bog Devil Ambushers, whatever you want to call them. And Frozen Shore Hunters, and obviously we're going to look through those today straight away. So we'll dive straight in, right? And here's the chance of this working first time. It'll work first time, trust me. We don't have any technical issues on this stream whatsoever. There we go.
It seems that at least on my iPhone, the War Console wasn't updated yet, but
yes, actually,
certainly it will come soon.
Yeah.
No iOS update, right?
No, it's only an Android update so far. There has been no iOS update.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Classic Apple problems.
Yeah, this is an Apple problem. Waiting for verification.
They call it quality control.
I think that's what they've done on Twitter, right? They just quality controlled their the CEO. I think. I don't know. Don't know how it works. All right. So we got the Kranigman Bog Devils. I'm not going to show people the reverse of this card because the reverse is really boring. It's 7 points. It is a 6-move, 7/5/4 on a 3+ profile, 5 armor, 5 morale, and it has 2 orders. Scout openings, like we've seen on Jorah the Explorer, and of course the new Martell Sand Skirmishers. And we've got Swift Retreat, which we know from Veterans, and we know from that's Targ Veterans, and also from the Kranigman Trackers, Kranigman Trackers, isn't it? Not Trappers. And then we've got a new ability, Poisoned Tridents, which is before rolling dice, you choose one of these 2 abilities, which is either the defender becomes weakened, or you attach a Kranig Poison card to the defender. So, before we look at the Poison card, what are you feeling so far, Carlo?
So, I mean, we should also say they're 7 points, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
always a very important piece of information. So, what am I feeling? 7/5/4. It's not a deal breaker. 7/6/4 would be a nicer profile in the 7-point category, right? Like that's not a phenomenal profile. Don't forget, like pretty much these days, everything starts at 7, everything ends at 4. The question is, what is your 2 rank stat? Is pretty much the only like differentiating feature we have these days on nearly all infantry. Okay, so they're at the low end of that. They do hit on 3s. That would be the absolute base minimum of what you could expect from a 7-point unit. Now, the 5/5 is actually an interesting profile, and very reminiscent of Hunters, very reminiscent of what's the Martell rough equivalent of these guys? I forget what are they called.
You're talking about Martell Sand Skirmishers.
Sand Skirmishers, yeah, who also, of course, have scout
everything
openings.
Martell has armor 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so aren't they? They're a 4/6, right?
Yeah.
The Sand Skirmishers.
Mm-hmm.
Are all 3 of those in the 6-move category?
Hunters. They're
Hunters.
yeah.
Yep. So I mean, these are all very comparable 7-point units, and Bog Devils are in there amongst that in discussion with those ones. Very similar kind of profile to them in all those things. So what we get is the right hand side of the card, right? Like everything on the left makes sense. Scout openings, I think, is actually quite a valuable. It's quite a valuable order. I actually really like it. It's useful for pushing through your own damage, but also supporting other things is a big play for it. Unlike the other 2, you don't have a short-ranged attack, so that is a big negative by comparison, like in direct comparison to these other very similar units. The Swift Retreat is decent, but you don't have anything super tricky off of the back of it, like whatever the one is that stops your opponent from being able to pivot.
Elusive.
Yeah, when those 2 come together, that becomes a really, really difficult proposition, but it does stop them from getting bogged down. The real big question is whether or not the Trident whether or not these poisons are super valuable or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we think that the poison is more valuable than just giving out a weakened, and that's going to be quite difficult to place in its value just for the moment. Overall, I think they're fine at 7, and I do like that they play into some of the tricks that Howland already brings. I would really like to know if like a new Howland-based Stark list can like actually give a very different dynamic to Starks. I know some people do play Howland now and again, but I think that these do lean into everything that he does well. Mm-hmm. helps support everything that he does well, which is great because obviously they're Kranigman. And it's a question of whether or not they bring enough for 7 points, whether or not you have space in that list build for that. I think they're quite interesting. I definitely think that they're in the okay category. They're not blowing me away, but I like their tool set. I like their set of tricks. I think that if they did have a short ranged attack, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But they're not. They're melee only, and so little bit on the lower end of value there for me.
Mm-hmm. The way I kind of spoke about it earlier was that essentially the unit has no double down in damage, right? It has its one attack, which is fine, but it doesn't have a way of double downing that in any way, shape, or form. Like I'm not even like Martells, the Sand Skirmishers. With the tools in the Martells anyway, plus what's available on the tactics board, you can always potentially just get an extra movement out of them, at least into a shot. So you get 2 attacks potentially around, usually, with that unit. This unit's going to get 1, maybe 2 at best, because it's only melee. You have Assault Orders to support you as well. But then on top of that, like, you don't have any real synergy with the Scout openings, and this is actually the big thing, really, was that the Scout opening synergy is quite low.
For them, the Scout openings really needs to be a support piece for somebody else. Scout openings is an incredibly valuable asset to a ranged unit, but it's not incredibly valuable asset to a melee unit who hopes to be able to like achieve charge rerolls and stuff like that anyway. And getting precision on a melee attack, not that valuable, or like not that hard to achieve. Getting rerolls to hit on a melee attack, not that hard to achieve. Getting rerolls and precision on ranged attack, other than the fact that Scout openings is now becoming reasonably common. Like it exists for Jorah, it exists for the Martells, and doesn't somebody else have it, or is this the third case of it?
I think this is only the I think this is only the third. I don't think it's the fourth.
Yeah. It's starting to get around there a bit, but like this ability to enhance that ranged attack is reasonably rare. Evan says Scout opening is a good utility cav for a 10 dice. I mean, like if you're going to charge across something which is going to take away your charge rerolls, then yeah, that's good. It's like what's her name? Danny NCU on a stick. Combine that with Caitlyn so that you're never going to be weakened, stuff like that. Yeah, like you can lean into that, but you've just spent 7 points to enhance your 8-point unit. Like, you've really invested in this one charge, and I think that 15 points that I'm allowed to spend will shut that charge down, in my opinion.
It does play into the somewhat synergy, or kind of like supposed synergy, that I think Howland has wanted for a long time, being that he wants to play big terrain pieces, which typically woods or bogs. Is very much like a Howland Bog Devil style Kranag playstyle, and the Scout openings allows you to certainly navigate around the bogs because you get those rerolls back. Less so with the woods because the +1 armor you can't negate. But it does allow you to play around the bogs a lot more, which is nice from a synergistic perspective. But
precision is going to help you if you're playing. It's a +1 armor save, charge through the forest.
Yeah.
Melkor says, trigger for your Kranigman trackers, which I do think, like basically that is the ranged unit that comes to mind. You could talk about Stormcrow Archers, you could talk about Stark Bowmen. Neither of those, like Stormcrow Archers are fine units. Unfortunately, Stark Bowmen are just like generally worse than Stormcrow Archers. But enhancing a 5-point Kranigman unit, I do think there is some nice synergy there, but like I always tell people, like, take a big like grain of salt, shall we say, or a real hard look at whether or not these two reasonably paper thin units working in tandem, like, it is actually going to do something for you, because simple is better. Unit that just stands alone by itself and is powerful in its own right, nearly always just like performs better than like, hey, I've got these 7 moving pieces that all have to come together for me to kind of like get the effect that I want. On their own, I think they're fine.
Yeah. Teemu, we lost you there briefly, so you probably missed most of that conversation. But what was your overall opinion of this unit? Now you've just seen it. I know it's pretty new for you. Where do you sit?
Yeah, well, it's another pretty much class cannon unit for Starks, like Mormon Bruisers. Really good abilities, though, and of course that Moral 5 will help them. Yeah. Would be quite logical to have Rob Commander there to heal when they're...
Yeah, I think that...
Yeah, I think it takes a bit of skill to play them well. Not the easiest.
I definitely think Rob Commander for the regroup is probably the best shout. Gives you access to things like hit and run as well, so you can kind of jump in, use the poison, then you can weaken off the back of Rob's hit and run. Maybe it wants to play around this. I guess the problem for me is that, as is always the case, I quite like the unit as a skirmishing unit, but it's hard to fit a skirmishing unit into a list when it's 7 points. And Starks don't have a 4-point option, meaning that they're kind of stuck into this weird, wonderful kind of 8 activation, but then having to invest 1 point for Rickon and then 3 points for Shaggy, or 1 point for Bran and then 3 points to get these 4-point activations to kind of flesh out a list. And actually, like when I'm building like 8 or 9 activation lists with Starks to try and make skirmishing units work, you often find that you end up with these really janky situations where, in order to fit the attachments that you need to take the dogs, you don't have anywhere to put your commander. You can't afford a unit like this to put your commander in, which is a bit of a shame. On the plus side, at least with Rob, you do access Grey Wind for 3 as well. So there is.
Yeah, I was going to say Rob. While I don't rate him as an individual commander in his own sense, like he does open up the highest activation playstyle for Starks right now by bringing Grey Wind at 3. Yeah, like I think the unit will be difficult to use well. It's not a powerhouse. It's very much like a tech piece. If you can find the right use for it, and it always comes down to this case that, like, with these tech pieces, with these skirmisher units, basically, like, if you're the better player, you will get tons of value out of this. Like, you'll be able to really be able to do some nasty things, some things that your opponent didn't see coming, and your opponents will be incredibly frustrated. But if your opponent can see them coming, if your opponent knows what they can do, if they know their capabilities, all those things, then those very finicky kind of units, they're easy to stop them getting their full potential. And then when you just look at their raw stats, they're not phenomenal. And so if your opponent is as good as you or better, like, chances are this unit's just not going to get its value back. And that's a very difficult unit to field, because realistically, you're saying, if I was going to win anyway, this was a great unit. And if I wasn't going to win, this isn't going to help me win at all.
There is one thing, and that is, of course, the poison, which we haven't looked at what Chronic Poison actually is yet. This is the one, I guess, contentious. I would say that so far this unit is not a 7-point unit in kind of like how I'm going to see it play out. I'm not feeling it for 7 points currently. I'm looking at it thinking 6.5 value, if you will. But then we have the poison. Now, the poison is pretty good. It is this. Each time this unit performs an action, before resolving that action, it suffers plus 1 wound, plus 1 wound if it has any condition tokens on it. That's 1 or 2 wounds. If this unit would ever remove a condition token, you may remove this card instead of that token. Now, when I say this is decent, this is going to be incredibly good, ironically, against stuff that Starks do actually struggle with, which is enemy cavalry. Poisoning enemy cavalry for it to then take 2 potentially 4 wounds if it wants to do anything in that particular round, is going to really, really, really punish that unit. Like, hugely so.
I think I have an instant question, which is, a unit can't be affected by a rule twice, but can I give a unit 2 chronic poisons so that they can only remove 1 at a time? So obviously I don't expect you to take 2 lots of poison, but the card specifically says, like, when you attack, you may place a chronic poison on the unit, and the chronic poison says when you would remove a token, you can remove this card instead. So I feel like there is something to be said that maybe if the unit's already weakened, you get an attack, bang, chronic poison. You get another attack late in the round, you're just like, here, have another chronic poison. You're now 2 poisons deep. It's going to cost you 2 money bag heals or 2 token removals to get out of. Exactly. Everybody drink. Questioning dodgy rules. Marwin will be off his chair in no time. I think it'll be really interesting. I don't think it's going to come up that often, but I do think it's quite an important thing. I do think the ability to attack and apply poison twice in a round will happen semi-regularly. And I think particularly on cavalry, which is what you do want them to hunt, you want that weaken token, but like hopefully you can apply that in other ways anyway. And to just start making that 4 wounds when you maneuver and then charge as like stacking them up such that no, you can't get extra wounds, but pretty much we get to the point where you're never going to be able to get these off anymore. There's too many things to remove. All you can do is like hopefully keep the tokens off yourself so that it's only 1 wound, not 2. That is a question I saw somebody ask, whether or not if you don't have a token, you can't take the poison off, because like how am I supposed to remove a token from a unit? But I disagree, which is I feel like if you target them with money bags, you're allowed to remove a token.
Yes.
And then, you didn't have to have a token for you to meet the condition that you would be able to remove a token.
Yes. Yeah, so my reading would be that the unit either removes a token or it doesn't remove a token. And when you remove it, it's gone. So as a result, Moneybags is still removing a token. It's just that this isn't. I mean, I am of the opinion that this could be worded very differently to clear it up a little bit. Basically, it's like people are saying, you could use this instead of a weaken token to make someone reroll their attack. Because you say, I want to spend Chronic Poison as a weaken token. That's what some people are saying. Do I think that's right? I don't know.
So wait, they think that the second part says that if you would ever use a token up, you can instead spend the poison.
Yeah.
Okay. No, those people are stupid.
So some people in chat there.
Yep. If that's what you think in chat. Nope.
Interesting. Hobbs makes a very good point in that, strictly speaking, precious supplies from the new Justin Massey commander in Stannis' side, Baratheons, does remove all tokens after being attacked, which would remove this.
Yeah.
So you can't poison a Justin Massey list, which seems
true, but
very
I was
odd.
thinking, things, there are some things where, I guess I'm only thinking of Stag's Wit, but you can't Stag's Wit it, right? Like, it's not an actual token, so when your opponent goes to apply it, you can't say, oh no, you're not applying a token. Yeah, it's in a horrible gray area where it's like it is a token, but it's not a token. I'm not yet sure whether or not I wish they had just made a poison token and added it to the game. There might have been some unintended consequences on the opposite end, which is with Stag's Wit, or adaptive planning, all those things like that, right? somebody's like, hey, you're poisoned. Somebody who doesn't have access to poison. Bog Devils attack some Baratheons, and Baratheons go, no, actually you're poisoned with a poison effect that like I don't have. So like that's possibly why they shied away from the use of poisoned as a token. I hope they didn't shy away from it because the base box doesn't include a poison token, because like that's really just like, you know,
dumb.
Like, yes, dumb, effectively. Because first, like, you could, like, it didn't stop them from adding pillage tokens. It didn't stop us from adding faith tokens. You could easily have included poison tokens with this unit. You could have easily included a little set of 6 poison tokens with Martell heroes.
You could have, it could have been like no coin beyond the wall for free folk as an additional card as well. That's just in the card set for the unit, which, you know, remember has no gameplay actual value on the board, but is a rule that is followed in the game. So that could be a thing.
That's interesting. Daniel says that you could Stag's Wit it if you already have it and then you get a token. I don't know whether or not Stag's Wit removes a token or stops you from gaining a token. Do you gain the token and then remove it? In which case you could Stag's Wit and then choose that when I'm about to remove this token, I instead take off the poison. I don't know. But planning can remove it? I think so, maybe. Anyway, I think it's very interesting. It's very hard to place in its value. It has, as you say, cavalry being the actions. Also, anything very high armor, great value against, which again, stocks have a little bit of trouble with, maybe. You know, I'm not a big stock player. They have trouble with everything, to be honest. So, like, you know, being able to put some pressure on flayed men is great, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the matchup is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it makes them really a proper 7 value unit, still yet to be decided.
Yeah, no, I agree. Teemu.
Yes.
Your video is being very slow, but we'll manage without your video. Your beautiful voice is enough. How do you feel about the crowning poison? How do you feel about it?
Okay, just lost audio.
Oh God, today's not a good day, is it? We've had multiple issues today. I will say this.
And you keep losing my beautiful face.
It's all right. I'm gonna keep your face here now. We set up everything prior to the stream today. Carlo was here. We set up everything prior to the stream, about 15 minutes out. Everything worked absolutely fine for 14.5 minutes, and about half a minute before the stream went live, Teemu's internet started playing up, and we've had absolute hell on since. I do apologise to Teemu as the guest, but also all of the viewers here today for the abundantly amazing quality that you've come to expect here at Songwriters and Fire Stats.
Always raising that bar.
Yes, always raising that bar. Yeah, I am going to move away from certain things in the new year, hopefully.
People are saying that Stag's Wit does remove. I wonder if they've. No, I think because it's not a token and stuff, they have worked around it. You may remove this card instead of that token, so I guess you're not going to be able to place one of that token in long range. I wonder whether, I'm not sure if you have to sacrifice the letters part of Stag's Wit. It's like, hey, I gain a weakened and I play Stag's Wit, and Stag's Wit says I remove that token and also place one of that token within long range. But like, if I then say, you know, the weakened that I was going to remove, that's actually going to be poison. Have I missed the opportunity to also give a weaken to somebody in long range? Don't know. Would have to read into the card.
I think it would be because it's when you gain a token, right, that you can choose to remove it. So you'd remove the vulnerable, inverted commas, if that's what you've just been given, but you remove Crannog, so you'd give a vulnerable because that's the one that you remove.
I think you're still able to give that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, it's a corner case. I think generally speaking, I like the addition of the poisons to the game. I like the way we're expanding basically negative effects that can be on units. I do think that they feel like at this point, they're becoming more regular. I think that they're a nice addition, and I think I would have liked them to just be a token. But they've decided that it's a card which works a lot like a token, but it's not a token. So they've gone down that route. We'll see whether or not it's going to work well for other tokens in the future, other poisons. Overall, I am very interested to see what these guys do, but I do not believe that they're going to have an impact as things stand. Like, this is not, in my opinion, this is not going to catapult Starks into being viable, powerful. It might give them a new look with a secondary techie list. I don't think that this is new tournament staple.
I do think the one thing that matters here is I do think this gives the unit viability into, or the Stark faction viability into other things that we know are currently good. Stuff like Champions of the Stag. Being able to punish Champions of the Stag with the poison, in my opinion, is the big unit there. The big killer unit, if you will, which Starks, outside of Great John Umber and like a couple of precision here and there, and just loading up vulnerables and panics and hoping that you can do damage through the armor, matching with Tully Cavaliers was never a solution. And I believe that it gives them a different look to attempting to deal with Tully Cavaliers. Champions of the Stag. That doesn't mean
I'm Flayed Man as well, but champs are like the specific, the specific of the problem. Flayed Men are the generic of the problem.
Yes.
Interestingly, Jesse says if it was a Martel unit, it would be 6 points. Carl's straight in there, like, yes, that's true. I don't agree. Which is, I think I'm not decided yet, but I think they're better than the Sand Skirmishers or whatever those guys are called. Or they're very, very, very much on par with the Sand Skirmishers. They would fit incredibly well into Martels. I think that they feel very Martel, poison and all that stuff going on. I disagree. They wouldn't be 6 points just if they were in Martels, in my opinion.
I think the big thing for me, the big thing for me, is that I think that they are within what I would call Stark balance. I actually don't think that they're miles away from what Starks are currently looking at as good. This is the thing, and when we come on to it in a minute, I am actually going to give praise to playtesting and/or game development and game design for one moment, in that I do believe that they are making units which are, and I use this term very loosely, balanced, right? They are making units that are balanced, but they're making them balanced within reference and within logic of the faction. So what we're seeing is actually very good internal balance. But actually, good internal balance is just bad external balance is the problem. Oh, look, this Stark unit's barely better than the other Stark units in its same point category.
It's not the only Stark unit we take. It doesn't change anything about the Stark faction. Great. The Stark faction aren't doing great, guys. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's not a bad thing.
Are you saying, like, Starks are fine because, I mean...
That's the issue. That's the issue, is that...
I'm sorry, but, other than, like, a fucking freak Gen Con result, Starks have done nothing for an incredibly long time. Like, they are not winning.
No.
I agree. We'll come on to like things being internally balanced on the next unit. Everybody disagrees with me. They think that Sand Skirmishers are way better and that the ranged attack is really valuable. Like, Like, I did begin with the whole idea that like them not having a ranged attack is pretty feels bad by comparison. And they are on the 7.5, so I shouldn't forget that. Like they're straining on the 7-point thing. I think I do actually really value this poison. The more I look at it, the more I think that things can be done with it. Just to answer, somebody asked about Shira. Shira's pretty straightforward, which is if she takes money bags, if she takes off a token, she can give that type of token out. She hasn't taken off a token. She's foregone the ability to take off a token. take off the poison. So yeah, I think they have covered all bases with the poison. I don't think I can see any dodgy cases where you move the poison over to an enemy. I don't think it's ever going to blow back onto you as a problem there. Yeah, come on. Right now.
The only other thing that I'll mention about these guys is that yes, we talk about them, into the meta. The big thing that people look at the moment is two stats, right? Your attack profile is like, I'm going to say this is really weird. Your attack profile doesn't really matter. Like,
doesn't matter because everybody's is the same.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just doesn't matter.
Like, what matters is what keywords back it up.
Yeah, and what I think is very important is morale and armor.
Yeah, the differentiation, the three things that you're allowed to differentiate wildly, literally wildly from each other, is you're allowed to have wildly different armor, wildly different morale, and wildly different movement. So you are built around those three stats because your attack profile is always the fucking same. And then you say, how much value does my right-hand side of my card, my inbuilt keywords, my orders, my X, Y, Z, how much does all that, add? You could always give them hardened and make them 8 points. I mean, okay. I'd keep them at 7, I think, rather than that.
Otherwise, they just die to traps, among other things. It's prominent in the meta. I believe Teemu's back with us.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you, Teemu. It's been a day, hasn't it, buddy?
It's been a bit of a mess. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. We'll go without video from yourself, Teemu. Just hopefully that'll make it a bit more stable. But yeah, you've seen the Devils now. You've seen the poison, hopefully.
Sure.
Would you haven't played Starks much, have you? You've played a bit of Starks.
I started with Stars back in the days, but it's been not my not lately, not like since 2 years, not much.
So yeah, we'll are you thinking of picking up a unit, playing some more modern Stark stuff, or are you thinking now pass? I've got more interesting stuff to play.
Yeah, my focus is now on Martels and actually my undead free folk army.
Yes,
of course, Howland Reed benefits from having several Kranakman units on the field. So I would certainly love to give them a try, and I see the potential.
Yeah, I wanna use this unit, and I wanna be able to do. I was actually thinking maybe like a Great John in them or something. To just go start of a round, take the swords, do a swords assault orders charge with an auto 6 with Great John, 12 inches, bang, hit a unit of like Ranger Hunters from Night's Watch.
Long range.
So I can poison them, and then go, what you gonna do? Because if you do any actions, you're gonna kill yourself. And just
take bags.
Oh no, you countered my plan, but then I can just attack you again, right?
True.
So yeah, like I do think that there's value there. But yeah, I think it's gonna struggle. I think it is gonna struggle. All right,
a final thing, considering that it's going to struggle, I do actually agree with the people in chat, which is they are practically spears. They haven't got a ranged attack. They really could have been given that other profile that exists, 774. They could have been given a very good second rank stat instead of a very bad second rank stat, and that would have helped. It would have made things not feel so bad. Anything which seems long and pointy seems allowed to have a 774 profile, unless you're a bog devil for some reason.
That's nice.
What's
to know
the
that
profile for the new Dune Vipers? They also have pointy things. They have spears.
Yeah.
I think they're 7/6.
They might be.
They're 7/4 and cost 6 points. Whatever.
Trappers are 6/3 because they're 4 points, so they have to take a bit of a nerf. Nice to know. I'm anyone in chat. I'm a 7/4 profile at home. Anyway.
Yeah,
all right.
7/4. Beer and net.
I'll just continue drinking. It's fine. Right. We move on to the other unit that has been revealed. And this, Teemu, you'll be happy with this one. It's a free folk unit. Is this going to go
Yay.
inside your undead free folk army?
Absolutely. My thing is that I just convert all of them. So
There you go. You see.
maybe I use these models or some other models. But they are really strong guys because they can throw that heavy harpoon for long range, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so today, if anyone hasn't seen the updates and hasn't been on the main Discords and stuff, today what we have seen is the majority of the conversation has been about how far the longest Olympic javelin throwers can throw, and how far
Exactly.
a crossbow can shoot in relative distance to a bow, and also how far a javelin can be thrown. And it turns out that the longest javelin throws are something like 200 feet or something like that, but the average javelin throw is about 40. A crossbow is like 180, and a longbow is like something just over 200. I think I can't remember the exact stats numbers for the bow, but but people.
Can we just point out though that this Olympic thrower can do that at best once every 10 minutes, and even that Olympic thrower is exhausted after that. The bowman can knock and shoot that arrow 3 times a minute. At
More
the very
faster,
least.
Right? Like some of
Yeah, like I mean, at the very least, we're talking about at the far extent of his range, right? Like
Yeah.
he can just blast them off at like hundreds per hour. God damn it! Like what the fuck? Come on now.
So we'll go through this.
This is fantasy, you know.
It is fantasy. I've got a big arm, and as that's the other memes we've seen
No,
today.
no. I'm not letting just fantasy go with this, right? Like also, yeah, trappers. What do they have? They've got slings. They go way fucking further than harpoons
Slings
do.
go
Yeah,
a long way. Yeah, that's true.
Slingers, trappers with their slings could easily, I would accept, logically speaking, if they were long range. I will never logically accept this guy throwing a non-Olympic javelin with a massive harpoon on the end.
With rope attached.
Not aerodynamic, not well weighted, not even made for war. No way does he throw this thing long range.
What you don't know is it's carbon fiber. Secretly. All right, so these guys are 5 move. They have a stunningly strong raider profile, set 654 on a 4+ long range, and 654 on a 4+ in melee. So it's basically exactly the same. 5+, 7+. Again, you can almost replace this unit for raiders in terms of their stat line. They are raiders in every single way, but they come with Mark Target as an ability and the Harpoon ability, which is after completing attack, the defender becomes weakened, and that works on both the ranged and the melee profile. They're 5 points.
Yeah, pretty good 5-point unit.
Now, people aren't going to like my opinion on them, which is they are what I would consider a good unit, right? They are a good unit. I don't know if you would pay 6 points for this in other factions. If you had the option between Lightbringers at a 4/6 with the Vicious Spread Panic longbow shot on a 3+, 7/6/4, there's a lot of little upgrades there. I don't know whether you want Mark Target and Harpoon instead of your Lightbringer Spread Panic. I don't know.
You're comparing that to one of the best units in the entire game.
Sure.
That is in a sub-faction of something that is currently half built around that unit.
Sure, but I'm going to continue the analogy, right? Because Crossbowman at 6, the Sundering 6/6/4 that we see on 3+ with the potential rerolls of being in short range. Lannister Crossbowmen have the 4+, 6+, 4+, 7+, no, 6+ now, right? 4+, 6+ now. So their morale, armor, both stronger as well. Movement's the same. So again, what you're paying for, realistically, is a comparison between Mark Target versus the Sundering rerolls. I don't think that Lannister Crossbowmen are not what I would consider a fantastic unit like Lightbringers are, but they're certainly not bad. They're one of the stronger units in the Lannister roster at the moment, but Lannisters, we now know, are not being pulled by their units. If anything, are being pulled by commanders at the moment. I don't think this is significantly better than 6-point units out there. I don't think it's
It
point
costs
worse.
5 points.
yeah, but we'll get to that, right? Because you've got Greyjoy Bowman at 4 on a 6/6/4 profile, hitting on a 4+, so the damage output from range is roughly similar. They have the 5 armor same. They have the 8 morale versus the 7. That's a debatable discussion right there. Mark Target, great ability, don't get me wrong. That's roughly equivalent to Finger Dance, though. All in all, the difference being Finger Dance is every attack.
No. You are not allowed to include Finger Dance. You
Okay,
are
yeah,
literally
fine.
not allowed to say
Yeah,
one of the best Greyjoy cards in the
Sure.
deck if you happen to draw it, if you happen to put it on the unit. And you're not even considering the downsides of the card, which is when you get attacked, you also become vulnerable. Finger Dance is not part of the conversation. You cannot say Bowman have Finger Dance, these guys have Mark Target. That's a non-acceptable discussion point.
Yeah, absolutely fine then. So Mark Target is decent, Mark Target is the equivalent of being able to do that on demand, which is better, right? It is only line of sight.
Mark Target plus Harpoon is the equivalent of already having inbuilt Warcry, which is near guaranteed. Like, it's effectively Warcry, and it's 100% effective.
Except that it doesn't help you with the panic, and the other thing is line of sight. Line of sight is required for Mark Target, meaning that you can't shift into range to shoot something. You can't shift into a unit's line of sight, which we do see quite a lot with range units, shifting to see a unit to be able to shoot it. Be it shifting 2 back or shift to the side to get a sight arc that was...
You couldn't have Warcried at the start of the turn if you weren't within 12 anyway.
Sure, but not for sight arc. Sight arc is different to long range.
Right, okay, but most of the time we see people set up 14 inches away and shift into 12 anyway.
Okay. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and defend and say this unit is bad. It's not bad. But I think people have gone absolutely nuts, so this is insane. And that's because of something that we already know is insane, which is Mance, right? If we remove Mance 5 morale from the discussion, this unit isn't breaking banks, I don't think, personally. It is not breaking banks. The difference is that Mance exists. And yes, in Mance, this is very good because it's a 5+5+ at 5 morale and 5 points, and that's just silly. But that's the problem, not the unit in itself.
I mean, it's only 5+ to 7+. It's not even they don't have to have Mance to work.
No.
The only thing that's hitting them back now is long range. Mance is incredibly important for the units that have to get stuck in, that have to be on the front line, which is 99% of all of the free folk units. These guys actually don't even need Mance. You can run this with Varamir, you can run this with whatever. These are very powerful. You can run them with Walrus, yeah? These guys are Bowman with Asher at 5 points, 1 point Asher, and that's the best thing that Greyjoys can field. The best thing they have is Bowman with Asher. And this is just a spammable free folk unit if you felt like it, versus the very best thing that Greyjoys can field and is widely regarded as dangerously undercosted at 4 points.
Agreed.
This thing is 5 points and shows how ridiculous the baseline discussion of what free folk is acceptable, considering that you're not even well, obviously I'm just going to spam this, because it's just fucking crazy. Okay. This is in line with the rest of free folk, and every other faction would do anything for it.
What free folk are kind of missing is that many other factions get rerolls, crossbows get rerolls on short range, but 6 ranged attacks hitting on 4+, that's not going to be very many hits.
Usually 0.
Not, but
From experience, I already do it a lot with trappers. So
the attack isn't the value. It's the fact that you can, and if you're just gonna take swords and get 2-3 attacks around, I mean 2 really, you're not just gonna find 3, you don't have assault orders, you don't have anything like that, right? But you can easily push these guys to having 2 attacks around, and that means that you're not just war crying now. You're giving out multiple weakens on top of the vulnerable, right? You're giving out 3 tokens around now, guaranteed, versus the value everybody places on Warcry. You yourself, Mickey, have said many times that Warcry is at least worth 1 point when done on anything at 5+. Forget fucking 5+. These guys do it automatically, and they can do it 1.5 times. Plus, we both accept that Weakened is actually, generally speaking, considered the best token of all of them. Now, Panicked doesn't actually help, like Panicked helps our damage output and helps through, a fucking crazy there's too many guaranteed kill play, right? And no, it doesn't help that. But seriously, any other faction would be absolutely losing their shit right now if they could pad out their army with 5+ archers, 2-3 of them as a baseline across their force that they could then put their expensive units in and around. To compare them to a 4-point unit and then be like, oh, well, Greyjoy archers are like actually kind of better. I genuinely believe, not just because of the lore reasons, I do actually believe that they should have been short range. Like, I actually can't fucking fathom that these aren't short range.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't actually care if they're long range or short range, because free folk don't care about long range units. This is actually a thing that, as much as I have talked about long range.
If you don't care, then when you start playing them, you'll play them with short range then, right? Yeah?
No, I will, sure. Yeah, go on. because the point is, this is actually quite important. None of your cards work. They don't get a single help from the deck at all. The only difference is you can maybe use coordination tactics or something like that if you really wanted to go for a long bomb charge with like Tormund Commander or something. Like, there are options with some weird stuff like that. But the simple truth of the matter is that this doesn't function well, and it doesn't work with There's Too Many, because you have to be in short range to use it. It gives you a support unit, but at this point we're talking about a long range unit. We're talking about blocking swords first thing. If I'm blocking swords, I'm not taking horses. If I'm not taking horses, I'm not using the maneuverability and control of the battlefield that wins me games, and instead I'm maybe doing a couple of hits and maybe applying a weaken token. This doesn't support anything that the current game plan in Free Folk does. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm not going to sit here and say this is a bad unit. It's not. My point is, this isn't something that supports the current game plan. And what we see, and if anything, what I do think this enables, which I do think is important, because I'm talking about a world where Mance disappears, is this enables the application of a weakened token at more than just short range, long range, whatever. It allows the application of a weakened token that was otherwise hitherto letters only or Mance commander cards only, realistically available in Free Folk, and this would support a lower activation build in Free Folk. Now, I'm of the opinion that if we see a change to Mance, which I really want to see, if we see a change to Chariots, which I think is probably going to be required, and if we see a change to Raiders, which I think at this point has gone beyond a doubt needed, if these 3 things get changed, I have got no issues whatsoever with them bringing out a unit at 5 points, which supports a 7/8, maybe 9 if you want to call it 9 going cheap, but like a 7/8/9 activation build from Free Folk. Because if they can compete at the same activation numbers that other factions are going to be competing at, and I'm not saying they're going to be winning, and I'm not going to be saying they won't still be too strong, but if they feel they can compete at 8 into another 8, then I think everybody will be happier about the game state. Now, I am well aware that that's not going to be popular. But the whole point of Free Folk players, especially the likes of me and Jacob have said it many times, is that it sucks that the worst thing that we can do in our faction is play a game that people want us to play. Like, people want, elite units. We put elite units on the board and go to shit.
Fuck off.
No, they do.
That's bullshit. You're basically just saying what everybody else says, which is like, I'd really love to be able to make 7 activations and be fine. And it's like, yeah, people would love that. Right?
Yeah,
people,
Baratheons and
really
Martells
like
do.
To be viable. People will really like these builds. But you know what? Pretty much no matter what units you give, the 8s beat them. Yeah? So you being like, oh, wouldn't it be a dream world where Free Folk just get to play 8 and it'd be all lovely and dandy. Like,
And yet
Fuck
Baratheon,
off.
Baratheon and Martell are fundamentally
bullshit.
based around 7s now at the moment. And we see the 7s doing significantly, or at least on par with the 8s in Stannis and Renly's side and Martell's side consistently. My point being is that if this is a move towards a lower activation game plan, then I've got no issues with that. As long as we see the nerfs that we expect to see, I've got no issues with that. Then we add onto the top, which is, this is not, as you said before, this is not an imbalanced unit when we compare free folk. That's a problem. External balance is a problem.
That's a huge problem,
Yeah,
right? That's
agreed.
a huge problem. That means that you can't change the other units because you still have an overpowered unit with that, which they're not going to touch for the next year. There's like a change to raiders, a change to trappers, a change to whatever, like change to thens. You know what I mean? Like I'm not across the board. Their power level is just things that other people would die for. And so what, you're going to like swathe across all of them? Chariots, like missed chariots is the very top of what like has to change. And so now you just like, okay, nerf all of them. It's like, cool, well, I'll just field 2-3 Frozen Shore Hunters instead then. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. I think you're missing, like, you missed so many points about this, right? This unit by itself, the only single thing that Free Folk couldn't do was win a long-range firefight. The only thing in the entire game was that they couldn't win a long-range firefight. And that is the only viable strategy people had, because long-range unit was the only way that you didn't have to run right into a manse bubble, get surrounded, get fucking insta-gibbed by like a there's too many and a surrounded and exposed and a whatever. Right? This unit at 5 points single-handedly beats the vast majority of 6-point units in one-on-ones at long range. So now, unless I'm bringing 2 6-point ranged units and bringing them both to bear against this Frozen Shore Hunters unit, you're actually now winning the long-range firefight. You get to win that just for 5 points. Bring 2 of them for 10 points. You can actually outshoot fucking anything. You can outshoot Ironborn Bowmen. You can outshoot the Lightbringers. You can outshoot Crossbowmen. You can outshoot everybody long range, right? At the very least, you make it so that nobody does any damage at long range because you weaken every time you shoot, and then they shoot back. You can have rerolls, you can have better hit, whatever you want. Weaken it, and you got a 5+5+ probably profile, if not even just the 5+7+. That's fine, and then you're just like, cool, well, now I just go about the rest of my tactics, which is I control the board, I control the points, I have insignificant, I have extra units, I have extra activations, and the one thing that you used to be able to do, which was maybe dictate space, maybe force the Free Folk to make an aggressive push to get within that short range. Maybe I can threaten them during that period. Maybe there's a grace time where I'm actually winning. If I can do some real damage during that, then maybe the Free Folk won't just steamroll me. And instead, no, you lose that phase too. There's not a phase in the game where the Free Folk don't win now. Not a single one, in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, I didn't think that was true before, so nothing's changed. Right. Like, I saw people run.
You can't see that things just got easier and better than like.
That's my point. They didn't get easier. They're just more options of something that was already very easy. So, like, it was not a problem for me. Like,
it's fucking embarrassing. Like literally, who the hell tested this unit? Who the hell tested these 2 units at the same time? And like,
well, this is the thing, right? If we assume that they're being tested by the same players, this is in line with all the other stuff that Free Folk have had. Like, this is in line with Varamir, this is in line with Chariots. We look at the Crannogman, they are in line with what Bruisers are shit, and yet they're in line with what Bruisers look like. They're in line with Karstark, the Karstark guys and things like that, Loyalists. The thing is that, like, they're all in line in faction. And this was kind of going to my crux of the matter, is that like the design, the direction of the design and everything is going in the right direction, I think, on a lot of ways. But what we're actually seeing is that the wild imbalance between units tested in different factions. And we see that with the fact that Brigands are still 7 and not 6. Knights of Cassie Rock Honor Guard were released. I mean, what? Like, how is that even released in the same vein that Golden Company Crossbowmen were released? You know, how these things exist, and yet other releases get released at the same time. Things that are clearly, obviously stronger. It requires zero effort to look at this unit in relation to Golden Company Crossbowmen, which we know are a bad unit, to say that this is better. It requires no effort whatsoever. And this is kind of my problem, is that I think that the balance internally is, generally speaking, fine per the ways we're looking at. Martells, I think Outriders were the worst unit we looked at from Martells last week. But Outriders are not far off the pace from what Martells are looking at. This is the problem, is that it just seems that there are wildly different playtesting groups testing each faction by the sounds of it. And that's a problem. That's actually the problem, right? Yeah. I don't know.
Sounds like it, yeah. The only thing that has been like rather similar in balance is all the recent Heroes boxes, mainly number 3s, I would say. None of them have been like amazing. There has not been a huge difference between factions. That okay, maybe Free Folk Heroes 3 is slightly better than others, but the difference is not as dramatic as we see in the other new releases.
I think Heroes 3 is better for Free Folk, and Heroes 3 is better for Free Folk. The only reason you again don't see Heroes 3 as commonly used is because Mance exists.
Yeah,
that's literally the only reason. Great Walrus is a very strong commander, and we don't see him played competitively because there's no point. Like, this is actually the thing. I agree. I think the hero boxes, generally speaking, have been fine within faction. Remember, Lannister Hero Box 3 had Robert Strong, who is potentially one of the worst 3-point attachments in the game. We had Dolorous Ed. Dolorous Ed, anybody in Night's Watch? Dolorous Ed?
No.
I mean, what is that attachment? What is literally a piece of garbage? But within the factions, that was probably considered like, oh, it's on the lower end, but it's fine within the faction. What? No, it's just bad. And this is kind of where I sat at the moment, is that I'm looking at this and I genuinely am of the opinion that these units are all balanced internally and are completely ignored externally. Almost completely ignored.
I think that the playtesters, rule writers, whatever, wherever it comes from, wherever the main push comes from, they literally just don't understand activation advantage. They literally don't understand how multiple less statted units can absolutely shut down these expensive infantry units. How they just don't have value. How making something 10 points just makes it fucking unplayable unless it's guaranteed to just blow up 4 and 5 point units every single time, which now basically doesn't exist in the game. And it's just frustrating when it's so obviously apparent here. And you know what? It's frustrating when you sit there and simp on Free Folk like if this wasn't a busted unit for a different faction, you wouldn't say this is fucking busted and it's stupid. That you sit there and like say, oh no, but it's not even that good, and I wouldn't even use it. It's like everybody else be like, what the fuck is going on here? That's my new spammed unit. Oh my god, my faction just got tiers and tiers worth of better.
That's fair enough. If that's the case, then yeah, that's fair enough.
Shall we discuss something not so competitive next?
We can.
This unit should be short range.
I agree.
Then we can talk. Until that unit's 6 points or short range, I won't discuss it any further.
I would welcome it being short range. I'd welcome it being short range if it means that people are happy with the game. That is a good change. Yeah, we'll discuss something not competitive. Do you know what this is, Teemu?
Yes. I'm
What is
still
it?
here. Yeah.
What is it?
What do we want to discuss? How about some campaigning, maybe?
No. You've got to tell me who this man on this chair is first. You can't dodge the question.
Sorry, what question?
Who is this
this
man
one.
on this chair? Yeah.
It's Walder Frey.
Is it? For those House of the Dragon watchers out there, this is a future project that has been sent to me by none other than a certain person. It is this man here. Someone is working on, I forget his name because I haven't watched the show. It's part of the reason why Viserys?
Viserys, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Viserys Targaryen that someone's used a Walder Frey model for. Do you know what army this is for, Carlo?
Luke's Targs, at a guess.
Yeah, it is.
Luke's Molten Targs.
Molten Targs. Here we have a high elf. A high elf on a dragon from Luke.
Nice.
Not finished yet. Teemu, if you were to rate this out of 10.
His attire is not very kingly.
That's fair. That is fair. If you were to rate this out of 10, what would you give it, Teemu?
His dragon.
The dragon.
7.5.
7.5. Wow. Generous. Carlo?
It's big zeros.
Big zeros. Cool. Right then.
It looks to me that it's not finished yet.
It's not. This is a work in progress. I should make that out.
Okay, then we should.
That, I'm trying to work out who that is. Is that Drogon? I'm trying to remember which. I think it's Drogon.
The dragon is Drogon.
Yeah, it is Drogon.
Yeah, it is Drogon, right? Viserion is leaning forward, and Rhaegal is sat back. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. I've decided that's definitely Drogon.
What is the problem?
He is the best looking dragon.
The anatomy. This dragon is too small for that heavily armored. Dragon.
Yeah, but
right. But yeah, it's a nice conversion.
Mm-hmm. But it's shit, right? It's shit, Carlo. You don't like it.
No, you know what? Like, he didn't add any real height to the base. He already comes on a base about that high, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the Molten will look actually quite nice. I do like the model. Not big on the use of the high elf stuff, but yeah. I like.
I painted some old high elf dragon princes as my Targaryen dragon knights and playing them as Blade Man.
Nice.
And I gave them Targaryen banners and everything, so they're pretty nice.
That's good shout.
I respect the workmanship, and I respect the theme and how hard he's trying with this army. Still not for me, Luke.
Carl says too much tactical rock for him. So there we go.